what's going on, you guys? This is Bart coming to you from TST Industries in Florida with a new episode of TST Garage. Check it out. We have a fine specimen of the new generation Honda Grom behind me. And today, in this video, we will be tackling the installation of the TST Industries Integrated Tail Light on this bike here. Now, our tail light's available in smoked or clear lens, as you can see in front of me. Here we have our hexadome light dispersing elements in all these fields. This light is programmable. All the programs for the brake and signal functions are available to be toggled through the press of a program button that remains accessible from the trunk of the bike. When this light is operational in the running mode, you have these fields that are lit up, and also these ribs are glowing when you press your brake. In addition to adding 20% to the brightness of these fields, we turn on these additional fields so that you have ample brightness from your brakes. Now, I did mention that this is a programmable integrated taillight, and that means that the signals have been integrated into halves of this capsule. Signaling right will light up this area, signaling left will light up this area. We did pack this unit with many LEDs. We also packed in that programming computer so that you guys can enjoy all the different modes and settle on the one that satisfies you best. It is plug and play. Don't be fooled. This is not the connection to your bike. We make the connection via our sub harness that makes this light vehicle specific. This will plug into the connector for the main taillight functions. Here we have the signal functions, and we also incorporated a pigtail for a license plate light connector, or if you're not running a license plate light and you want to connect a USB port or something like that, you'll have auxiliary power here available to you, and you can make your connection here. We provide all of the hardware that's necessary. We do reuse some of the hardware off the bike, but like I said, this is a very straightforward installation. I'm really looking forward to showing you guys how easy it is and how to perform the steps. So let's get started. So this bike has already been outfitted with the TST Industries fender eliminator and undertail. If you are starting with a bone stock bike that still has the OEM fender, I will demonstrate the steps necessary for the wiring components coming off and all that. If you need help removing the fender and disassembling the fender to get your harness out, then those steps are covered in the footage for the installation of our fender eliminator. That's a separate video, but we will have it linked in this video for you guys. Okay, let's get started. Let's remove the seat first. When we get into this compartment here, we need to identify the actual connection from the taillight to the harness. Let's start at the rear end because it's the easiest. It goes down along this side here. It's clipped onto the sub tray here. If we keep following it down and pull it up, we'll find the main taillight connector here. It's got 3 conductors and it has a locking mechanism here. I like to pull up on this locking feature with a tiny little screwdriver, pull it out, and now this guy's free. Now this is just hanging out on the sub tray, so we can use a flathead screwdriver to pry up on this white clip, and it should just clear out. And then we need to go towards the rear here, but here we are faced with the issue that this routes under the frame and under this tube, and then it's also connected to the sub tray via a clipping feature, cable management feature that has ratcheting clasps that go into a window and expand, and now it's very difficult to pull up on it. Technically, you can use brute force, prying under there and prying up, but that's not what we do around here. Let's do it in a surgical fashion. Let's do it right. So since we have our fender eliminator on this bike already, we will need to remove these fasteners, take down the fender eliminator. It is connected to a license plate light system that has a wire running through the inside, so I will just lay it down up on top of the wheel here and make sure that it doesn't fall off. If you are dismounting the fender at this stage, the OEM fender, then these 10mm screws will be what is coming out of these locations, and once this goes down, it gives you access to this feature, and then all you have to do is grasp those ratcheting features on the bottom of that part, push it up, and it comes off. I'll show you the detail on how that's done after I take these off. I realize that you guys may have a different company's fender eliminator on here, so if you do, just follow the reverse order of assembly for that particular system to lower it down and enable yourself to have access to that sub tray well. It's really simple. I'll show you what I did. So this is that feature I was talking about. It has these ratcheting ramps here. They go through a rectangular window and then expand and lock in from the bottom. So all you have to do is press these guys and push up on this component, and it'll just clear right out. It's very, very easy, just unfortunately requires the removal of the fender eliminator or your fender. Now we'll just need to remove this wire from its routing, and then we're good to go. I have a quick note here. I have noticed that these caps for the accessory access bolt holes here, every time I flex the sub tray, one of these pops off. So before we reassemble, let's make sure that all of these are accounted for, and that after assembly, we make sure that we have all of them in place. From this point forward, we are looking at a very simple procedure. We're going to remove these two 10mm nuts. Behind these nuts, we have washers. We are going to remove them, but we are going to reuse them with our new tail light. Once these steps are performed, tail light is now ready to come out. I like to push it by these studs, move it up and down, and that's pretty much it. Tail light comes out. We bring in the TST Industries tail light. Make sure that this wire fits through this window here. Make sure that we get these bosses aligned with these grommets and push them through. Now we will reuse the washers I just showed you were taken off from these locations, and we'll be using the new screws that were provided with the tail light. They do have Phillips head, and they are self-threading trilobular thermoplastic specific screws. Make sure that you don't over tighten them. You want to get them to the bottom, and then that's it. Once you get a certain amount of tightness past the bottom out stage, then that's it. Let's not strip the threads that we've just created. Okay, now bottom out occurs after we close the gap between the boss and the washer, and that tends to compress this grommet just a little bit. So be aware that you will be compressing that grommet just a little bit. This was designed in as a parameter for our installation method. Here we go. Now we'll have to grab the vehicle specific sub harness that comes with this taillight for your bike. There's only one way to connect it here. Green plug into green plug, and we are good to go. Now, as you notice, we have two separate connector types here. This is for our signal connection, and it also provides a positive 12 switched output in case you want to wire up your license plate light or some other auxiliary power requiring component. This is where you'll wire it in. This is for our main taillight connector. And what I like to do is route down the left side here and make sure that we are under the frame but not in a location that will pinch. We have access to under this component right here, and then it can exit right forward of this little accessory screw hole, and then we just route it down the entire side here. Now we will need to get this connector over to this side. I also like to get this connector from the harness for the tail light into the compartment here aft of the battery. That makes our connection really simple and makes the routing really simple. Now, I still have some wire bulk here because I have retained the stock harness for the fender lighting components. So that typically goes away with the fender, but I've retained it here because we're doing an installation where the signaling system is not contained within the tail light. We're doing other signals that were standard type signals, and they hang off the fender illuminator, and their connections are made in here. So that's why I had it retained. If you've just taken off your fender and you followed our guide in our fender illuminator instructions where we remove the fender, then you probably unplug this, but in case you didn't watch that video, I'll show you how that's done. You unplug these connectors. This is where we will be hooking up our new tail light, and this will just go away unless you need it for some other reason. At this point, this is completely redundant, so this would technically come off with the fender in a fender illuminator installation. I have this routed down here, no extra bulk really. There's a little bit extra bulk back here, but we'll find appropriate slack for it a little bit later. I'm going to pass the main taillight connector between the frame and the seat lock, and I'll get it here into the main compartment behind the battery. Now I can actually make the connection between this connector and this connector right under here. That's going to be tough to show you guys from that angle, but a very simple concept. Now, for my liking, the way I like to route these things, I would like to possibly contain the wire under something here. So I'm going to pull up on my fuse box and get this wire in and clamp down with the fuse box wires. This way, it is captive against components down here and stays out of the way so that anything you throw in your trunk won't be obstructed. Now, I have this connector that goes into the connection that we made open by the removal of the fender lighting sub-harness. Very simple, you plug it in, audible click lets you know it's good to go. And it also has a boot that you can stretch over it like this, and then we can just place it. There is a void right here in line with the battery terminals where we could fit that stuff. And for now, the installation of a license plate light is out of scope here, so I won't be installing it. I'm just showing you why we have these loops on here. Our connectors for our license plate light look like this, and it's very nifty to have these loops because you could make an axial connection here. You could fit these caps in here like so, and then connect the top like so, and now you are ready for plug and play connection here to the license plate light. In case you want to configure this sub-harness with another intermediate connector of your own choice, you just cut these sleeves off, unravel it, and you could do whatever you need to do with your plans for this bike. All right, for now, I'll just tuck this away. As you can see, we had one cycle of the signal. the signaling system will not permit an actual flash if you're not drawing enough current. So even though it's a separate module, and we do have a separate installation video for that component to be able to show you guys a demonstration of how this is supposed to flash properly, I will install this relay that we produced for this bike. And as I was explaining it, I just installed it. That's how simple it is. So let's see it again. Here we go. All right, now we have proper flashing. All the functions are there. We have physical mounting. Our programming button works. All right, we're good to go. We can power down, and now we will reconstruct everything, and I will walk you guys through some checks to make sure that you have your wires routed properly and nothing's getting clamped in place. All right, back up top here, we will start the reconstruction phase. Now, as you may have noticed, the whole subtray droops when you unbolt either the fender or fender eliminator from the back portion here. Then when you bring it back into position, your wire locations and routing may have shifted, and you will have interference between frame components and subtray. So we will need to eliminate that and make sure that the wires are free flowing and won't be abraded by contact between frame components and other components after installation. So let's start that by replacing our fender eliminator in its location. And what we'll do is we will initiate the thread into each fastening location, but we won't tighten anything so that we have adjustability for our wiring routing. Okay, this gives us enough play. I will just get my rear screws started as well. All right, in my assembly here, I have 2 sets of wires going down. If you're using our fender eliminator with our license plate light, or perhaps another license plate light, you will also have that same amount of wiring coming down. So the idea here is to make sure that from aft to here, where the connections are made, none of these wires get bound up against the frame, because then you could potentially have abrasion happening against those wires, and that will not be good in the long run. So what I like to do is grab both ends here and make sure that they're free flowing when everything's in position. You could still move them to the back, to the front. And if something is actually clamped, you're gonna need to find where it's clamped and clear it. Now, this is free flowing and this is free flowing. So I'm gonna hold it clamped in place and get my screws all the way down to the bottom. Here we use the same thermoplastic screws on the fender eliminator as we use here in the tail light. So it's the same concept. If you are using our fender eliminator, get it to the bottom and just a little tightness here, and that's good to go. Okay, looking good here. Final check, everything is still moving freely. I don't technically like to have this exposed to the seat, so what I'm gonna do is S-fold it like this and fit it under this frame component here. And now everything's out of the way. I have a little bit of slack here, so I'll just distribute it down in here between the frame and the sub tray. All right, that's pretty much it here. I can replace the seat and go enjoy a ride. All right, I thought I was done. You guys probably thought so too, but like I said, this bike does have an issue with dropping these caps here, this side and that side, when you work with the subtray disengaged. So I did find 2 of these on the floor, so I'm gonna pop them back in, and then we will actually be done. And then is now. All right, check it out. Took me about 20 minutes with commentary. Should take about 15 without talking. Beautiful upgrade from this very simple design. I mean, it gets the job done. It's pretty bright, but our unit actually seems a little bit brighter, even in the smoked version, and it's restyled to really complement the look of this Grom, especially this generation. It is very angular with some organic lines added into that, and combined with our fender eliminator and some other components that we offer for these bikes, it really completes the package. I love what I've done here. If you guys do agree, check out TSTindustries.com. You'll find these parts that you've seen in this video and other parts for your Grom and maybe other bikes that you may have in your garage. Also, if you like what we do, hit that subscribe button. We always appreciate that. Give us a comment. We like to talk to you guys, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Ride safe. Peace.